You have entered into the black hole of real estate, a place for industry news, tips, and strategies. Once you enter into our vortex, even if you could leave, you're probably going to want to stick around. I'm your host, Ron Weiss-Sakarski, and you are now entering the black hole of real estate. Well, it's great to be back, and I've got some things that are really on my mind this week that I want to talk about. Snowbirds, foreclosures, and what a potential Joe Biden presidency might look like. If these are on my mind, I got to imagine they're on your mind too. So let's jump in right now. The first thing is, in Florida, we're wondering, when are these snowbirds going to return, if they return at all this year? There's a couple contingencies of people that make their annual trek down to Florida to avoid the colder weather. And usually from the Northeast and some of the middle states as well, you'll see a great influx of families and people January, February, and March, and staying for several months most times to avoid the harsh winters. And this year, the annual migration, let's just say that it's uncertain. With the number of COVID cases spiking once again, many people are concerned about actually making the trip down here, and then if something happens, getting back. So I know that New York has, in particular, a number of things in place that don't allow people to travel easily in and out of the state. So hypothetically, you come down to Florida for a bit and something happens, you need to get back home. There's some quarantining involved with that. And since it seems to be a moving target, I'd rather not list what I think it is today. I'll just say that there's some difficulty there. And I believe this. Many people have learned that they can work from pretty much any place in the world right now, as long as they have an internet connection. So I do believe that among the people that are working up north, there are probably a number of them looking in Florida for a place to not only purchase their residency, perhaps pre-retirement, but also work down here during that time and actually move down here while still working in the colder weather states. That definitely is happening right now, so we'll see what that looks like. As far as the medical conditions, I'm going to not touch that hot button right now, but rather just say that there are some concerns among snowbirds about when to come down, how to get down, and how long to stay. And, the what if thing does play a role in this. So it's not defined what snowbird season is going to look like. Now, I do know this. Right now, there's a lot of restrictions at the Canadian border to the point that I'm not sure how many people are going to be coming down, our friends from the north, to visit us this springtime. Absolutely undefined right now. And as far as getting back home, I'm not even sure how that takes place. And again, I know the borders are pretty shut down right now. I don't know what that looks like. So if you're Canadian, you've got property down here, you're probably renting it out to somebody else, or you're making plans for perhaps an extended stay. Again, this is undefined. I'm not really sure what to put out there other than there is so much uncertainty about snowbird season. This is something I'm going to be taking a really good look at. Let's face it, there's so many restrictions right now. I don't know that it's too easy to pre-plan this, and I think that's most people are just holding off right now. I think they want to come down. They're not sure when or how and for how long. It's going to be that way. There's some vacant second homes down here right now, so the rental markets might be seeing a little bit more inventory. But again, it's all predicated on who's traveling to Florida this spring. So let's just put a big question mark out for this and revisit the snowbird season, because it's definitely in flux right now. Now, what about this whole business involving foreclosures? A couple things that have really jumped off the map to me. We thought that the real estate recovery would be a V-shaped recovery, and it has been. But the economy, despite the hopes of it, has not been a V-shaped recovery, and it's kind of wandered back and forth. Now, we are looking at a 13-year high for the number of properties that have been sold. Fantastic. And Google searches are up by 50%. Again, that's great. But what happens as this thing slows down, which inevitably things slow down? I'm not saying it is right now, but the what ifs start to play an effect. We know that the rentals were performing at about 92% last year. In other words, 92% of the people were playing. As of last August, September, it was in the 90% range, so down about 2%. Not a huge drop, but it does represent more people not paying, and it's affecting mortgages. They're telling us somewhere between 1 in 11 and 1 in 12, so let's call it 1 in 12 homes, are currently behind on their mortgage. Now, some of that is due to the forbearances. Others are just not paying. Some of those affected are those that have a mortgage on a property that is a rental property. And with the increase in the number of people not paying their rent, those landlords, those homeowners, they're in a tough spot. The eviction laws are such that it's really hard to get somebody out of an eviction if they're not paying, even if they're not paying. What do you do with that as a landlord and a business owner? Because you are a business owner. Your business is that you have something that you're renting out to people for a profit. And when that disappears, what happens there? Well, I mean, that home could be lost. Uh, it plays with the taxes involved as well. And we hear all this talk about tax reform right now. I believe that we are in a vulnerable spot with regard to foreclosure. And we don't say this often because foreclosures are super low right now. And the banks are doing everything they can to not have another 2008, so to speak, and have all those foreclosures out there again. But, when we have forbearances and delayed payments, mortgages, 1 in 12 past due, and a lot of more properties not performing as far as the rental piece, something's got to give here. At some point, when the job demand is lowered and people have given up on working, and who knows what's going on with business right now. I mean, we got an administration change likely to be happening right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. So even families with houses right now that are paying the mortgage, if that job terminates, what do they do? I don't have a crystal ball that I want to use on this right now, and I want to be optimistic and say that, hey, we'll just be okay. But I'm keeping an eye on the what ifs right now because it does play into it. And while no one is projecting high foreclosures right now, it's lurking in the background. And it is I'll use the word possibility, that we see a few more foreclosures, but I don't think that you'll see them in the beginning of the year, in the first quarter. I believe it's something that you may see over the summertime, you may see next fall, but I do not believe that foreclosures are going to become prevalent on the market, at least in the first half of 2021, because of the time it takes to actually go through the foreclosure process. And I do believe there'll be more workouts in place. And cross your fingers that there's something on the part of our government to help out with that. We'll see. The bank's got to play ball too. And the best thing right now would be a V-shaped economy. We would pick up where we left off, but we're not seeing it as far as that recovery. Now, another interesting thing right now is some of the conversations what Joe Biden might do with regards to the economy, and specifically in the real estate space. And a lot of things that are out there, first and foremost, they've rekindled the talk about abolishing 1031 exchanges. That happened in 2017. It's happened on both sides of the aisle. Every time 1031 exchanges have come up as a part of conversation, they've decided that it's actually good for the business world as well as for the economy. So if you have a startup business and perhaps they're moving from one location to the next and they're growing, deferring those taxes actually helps them make a bigger investment in a bigger space and hire more people. And it's been shown that time after time that removing the 1031 exchange benefits is actually directly hurt the mom and pop business, the small ones. So my suspicion is that is not going to take place. There is talk of an advanceable tax credit, $15,000, which is advanceable to first-time homebuyers. And I'm not sure all the particulars on how this might work, or, everybody wants to ask, where's the money coming from? I don't know, but let's just suppose for a minute there is a $15,000 advanceable credit for first-time homebuyers. We had this about 10 years ago, and we had the $8,000 tax credit for homebuyers. So it's a redraft of perhaps that. They found the money and it seemed to work, and I got a lot of people in houses. So maybe we see that. I know that right now they're looking at a giant initiative to invest in over $600 billion in affordable housing over the next 10 years. And again, I don't know where the money's coming from, but affordable housing, defined as, I'm not sure what affordable housing is, but I would say in the lower price points, I guess, is the easiest way to put it. We keep hearing it's to help out the hardworking Americans buy, or rent safe quality housing. So we'll see what that means. It's interesting. There's also $100 billion for an affordable housing fund that's being batted around as well. Eviction diversion programs have certainly been talked about, and I'm not really sure what an eviction diversion program looks and sounds like, but it has the makings of someone not having to pay the rent for, I guess, some proven cause. I don't know if that means money is actually going to go to the landlord to help them pay for the house and the business of being a landlord they've invested. I'm not sure what that all looks like and where the slant is going to come in on that, but there's that conversation. Out in California, they have what they call the landlord tenant bill of rights or something like that. And I'm not sure if that's a model for the entire country or just a California thing, but here's what I would say. There's a lot of things being batted around right now, and at some point we have to be careful not to attribute everything that we're hearing is something that's actually going to happen, or even what Joe Biden himself would institute and what he would push for. Uh, I'm not even sure how he's going to pick his cabinet right now, and all signs point to him taking office in January, and we'll see what that means. So right now, I believe that we have to take a look at where we are in the market, and the first thing is, for a snowbird, it's even hard to get down here, and it's uncertain. And we don't know where the foreclosures are going, and we're just guessing what the first year in office might mean for Joe Biden. So my thought is this. We've been in a good recovery. It's been a strong market. I can tell you, personally speaking, we've already surpassed the 2019 sales despite COVID. And by and large, the real estate market has been somewhat not paying attention to the COVID market because it's been robust and it's been strong. And we'll see if that ability and desire to move continues, because really this is just about people moving, is what the whole real estate industry is. And at this point, people still have a desire to move, whether it's from a cold weather state to a warm weather state, or a place where the economy is perhaps a little bit better, or a place like Florida where there's no state taxes. Maybe that's a driver. I just know that people are still moving. Despite some of the worst times we've seen, probably in my lifetime, as far as the health crisis, people still moved. And I think that's the story right now. So we are in constant motion. We are in constant flux. And right now, relatively uncertain of where things are going to head right now. But we keep on keeping on. So I'm going to leave it with that today. It's uncertain, but the market keeps moving on. And we'll see what it brings in the weeks and months ahead. I think we'll spend a lot of time talking about where we think the market is going, and hopefully we'll start to have some evidence and some leading indicators that give us guidance. But right now we're doing okay. This is Ron Wojciechowski with the Black Hole of Real Estate.